years ago, I traveled to northern India to a place overlooking the plains of Bangladesh where the Kashi people lived in a forest that receives more rainfall than anywhere else on Earth. And during the monsoon season, travel between villages is cut off by flooding so severe it transforms the entire landscape from a forested canopy into isolated islands. In order to combat this, the Kashi people have developed, the hill tribe has developed a living root bridges, which are created by guiding and growing tree roots that you can barely wrap your arms around through a carefully woven scaffolding. In multiple generations of the Kashi men and the women and the children, they'll take care of these roots as they grow to the other side, where they then be planted in the bank to create a structure that grows stronger with age. This 1500-year-old tradition has produced 75 of these incredible structures, and while they do take 50 years to make, in this landscape they can last for centuries. In a world where flooding and massive forest fires are becoming more and more common, it might be time to look at the way we build and create things. Normally we attempt to block out nature or contain it. I present to you that instead we should attempt to find ways of working with nature. And in fact, we've been doing this for thousands of years. In a speech to TED, Julia Watson explores several of the ways that indigenous peoples have been dealing with the very same threats that we are now faced with today. From floating villages in Iraq to fire stick farming in Australia, this is How to Build a Resilient Future Using Ancient Wisdom by Julia Watson. As an architect, when you imagine the great wonders of the ancient world, what do you see? The amazing aqueducts of ancient Rome, or maybe the greatness of the pyramids of Giza? These are both amazing feats of human innovation. As an architect, I've often wondered, why do we monumentalize the ancient wonders of civilizations that collapsed so long ago? For the past several years, I've traveled the globe studying ancient systems and practices that are still in use today. And many of the cultures these come from you may never have heard of. They live in the most remote places on Earth, facing environmental extremes like the desert drought or frequent flooding for generations. In the southern wetlands of Iraq, which are formed by the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates River, a unique water-based civilization lives. For the past 6,000 years, the Madan tribe has floated villages on man-made islands that are formed from a single species of reed that grows around them. And the Kossab reed is an integral aspect of every part of life. It is the food for the water buffalo and the flour for the humans, and it is the building material for these biodegradable, buoyant structures and their cathedral-like houses. And this dried Kossab reed, it can be bundled into columns, it can be woven into floors or roofs or walls, and it can be twisted into a rope that used to bind these structures without the use of any nails. The Madan villages are constructed in the marsh, as they have been for generations, on man-made islands that can stay afloat for over 25 years. Just earlier this year, when I was back from Australia, the craziest thing happened. Burnt ash from the wildfires surrounding Sydney rained down on us on Bondi Beach, and worried about carbon emissions, not viral transmissions, we were already wearing masks. The air was so choked by a plume of smoke so big it reached as far away as New Zealand. And during these wildfires, which were the worst we'd ever seen on record, something unexpected happened, but incredibly amazing. The ancestral lands of Australia, where fire stick farming was practiced, were saved even as the fire raged around them. And these ancient forests survived because of seasonal generational burning, which is an Aboriginal practice of lighting small, slow, and cool fires. What I find to be so incredible is that even as wildfires rage in places like California, we have the ancient technology that we know can help to prevent them. And what I find to be so incredible is how much we can learn from these technologies and how resilient we could then become by using them. And while the global attention is focused on the pandemic, as it rightfully should be, sea levels are still rising and cities are still sinking. And advanced technology is definitely going to help us with some of that. But in our rush towards the future, we tend to forget about the past. In order to deal with this very issue of flooding, the largest lake city in Africa was developed. Gandhi, meaning we survived, is formed of stilted houses arranged around a canal system that you can navigate via dugout canoe. And the Royal Square stands amongst 6,000 individual stilted buildings, including a bank, a post office, a mosque, and even a couple of bars. This is all surrounded by 12,000 individual fish paddocks or mangrove cages. And what I find to be so incredible is that while a single occasion is pretty insignificant, when you multiply it by 12,000, you get a chemical-free artificial reef, and you get a chemical-free artificial reef and an indigenous food technology on the scale of industrial aquaculture, which is the single greatest threat to our mangrove ecosystems. And what I find to be so mind-boggling is that even as in other parts of the world, where in other parts of the world where rivers are being contaminated by sewage, a city of 3 million people cleans its wastewater with its floodplains. On the edges of Calcutta, flanked by a smoking escarpment of the city's trash and riven by its highways, a series of 300 fish paddocks cleans its wastewater while producing its food. And through a symbiosis of algae and bacteria, the wastewater is broken down. Wastewater from the city is broken down, and the cleaning process is then finished by fish, and the process takes around 30 days. And what I find to be so just utterly mind-boggling is that even as other cities in Asia and in Europe begin to replicate this exact system, Calcutta is now struggling to save it from being displaced by development. Too often, when we are faced with crisis, we build walls in defense: concrete, steel, and glass. These are all used to build a fortress against nature. I'm an architect, and I've been trained to seek solutions in permanence. But this search has been different. It's been fueled by the idea that we can see creativity in crisis. We have thousands and thousands of years of ancient technology and wisdom that we just need to listen to and allow it to expand our knowledge about designing symbiotically with nature. And by listening to this wisdom, we'll only become smarter and more ready for those 21st century challenges that we know will threaten our people and our planet. Thank you so much.